Thank you everyone for coming. This is the second run of this webinar about how we can improve our sleep. So I'm Shamyla Younas. I'm a GP by background, and I work with ABL Health as a clinical director. And today I'm going to be talking about how we can improve our sleep and what factors affect our sleep and measures that we can take and essentially to improve our well-being. So the aims of today is to understand what normal sleep and what insomnia is, the complications of poor sleep and sleep deprivation, the factors that contribute to insomnia, what measures we can take to improve our sleep and to avoid insomnia and its complications. So what do we know about sleep? Why do we need it? So I'm going to ask everyone some questions as we go through. Why do we need sleep? Why is it so important for us? Just shout out.
To help our body heal itself.
Yep, that's right. Generally, it's to ensure we've got good health.
Yeah, to function.
To function. We all kind of know what happens when we don't get good sleep. The shorter your sleep, the shorter your lifespan. So it can actually affect your health to such an extent that it can shorten your lifespan. It's the most effective thing that we can do to reset our brain and body health. So there's quite a few processes that happen while we sleep, and I know that for children who are growing, that's when growth hormone is released the most. So it's really important that children also get good sleep. So what's normal sleep? How do you define normal sleep? Anyone have any ideas?
Feeling energized when you wake up, a feeling that you've had a rest.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I think it varies, doesn't it? So it's different for different people, and it's different for different times of your life as well. So it does vary depending on where you are.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's exactly it. So there's actually no standard definition of what's normal sleep. The amount varies depending on your age as well as from person to person. But there are some guides as to what optimal sleep looks like. So the American Thoracic Society suggests that the optimal sleep duration in adults is 7 to 9 hours. Anyone who has short sleep duration, so that's 6 hours or less per 24 hours, is associated with negative outcomes, which includes mortality. So I was mentioning about how it can shorten your lifespan. So having 6 hours or less is quite critical. Long sleep duration also can be a sign of problems. So anyone who has more than 9 to 10 hours of sleep per 24 hours, it could be a normal thing for that person, but also it could indicate other problems. And it can be a marker of ill health, physical inactivity, rather than actual cause of ill health. The normal time that it takes to fall asleep, so this is called sleep onset latency, is usually considered to be less than 30 minutes. So if someone takes longer than 30 minutes, we can say that they're having sleep problems, they're having difficulty falling asleep. And a 2-week sleep diary can help to assess for any difficulties in sleep and daytime impairment. So that's how you can sort of work out whether you are getting adequate sleep or not. So here is sort of a table that shows you how sleep requirements change as you get older. So a newborn will need 14 to 17 hours of sleep, and they tend to sort of have it in multiple naps when they're newborn. And as they get older, then nap frequency reduces. So as an infant, they need 12 to 16 hours. Toddler will need 11 to 14 hours, and you can see that as they get older, the requirement for the number of hours of sleep reduces down to about 7 to 8 hours when you're sort of 65 years or older. The reality is, you know, older people may be getting even less sleep than that for a number of reasons. But this is what is sort of recommended for people at different ages. You might look at that and think you're not getting enough, or you need more, or you have too much. But again, it does still depend on from person to person. And like you sort of mentioned, you know, having restful sleep, feeling adequately rested is I guess a good sign that you are getting enough sleep, even if it doesn't seem that you're getting the you know, the recommended number of hours. So we'll talk a little bit about insomnia. So the definition of insomnia is that despite adequate time and opportunity to sleep, the person has difficulty in getting to sleep, difficulty in maintaining sleep, or they experience early awakening, or they have non-restorative sleep. So that means they wake up and they're feeling really tired, and it impairs their daytime functioning or well-being because of the tiredness. Daytime symptoms might also include fatigue, reduced mood, irritability, malaise, cognitive impairments. It can slow you down. People who have sleep difficulties but without any functional impairment is not considered to have insomnia. You can have short-term insomnia and chronic insomnia. So short-term insomnia is when you have these problems for 3 months or less, and anyone who has it for more than 3 months, for 3 nights per week or more, is considered to have chronic insomnia. So before I go into the next part, what kind of problems can arise from having poor sleep?
Lack of concentration, lack of ability to function.
Yeah, so that's the cognitive impairment. Anything else? Any other sort of complications or adverse effects?
Maybe other health problems?
So yeah, there can be other health problems that arise from it. Anyone aware of any in particular? No. Okay, so I'll go through them. So there's obviously the cognitive difficulties that was just mentioned. So impaired memory, impaired attention, poor concentration. You know, people who are getting poor sleep might find that they're just taking twice as long to do the same tasks, and that, you know, they're sort of having problems at work. They have reduced quality of life. So like I said, work performance is reduced. There might be increased absenteeism, increased risk of motor accidents, and increased risk of falls in older people. There can be sort of psychological complications as well, such as anxiety, psychosis, depression. So you're twice as likely to have depression if you've got poor sleep as well. And some people are prone to substance misuse. So essentially what that person's trying to do is take substances that help them to sleep. And it can sort of go down a slippery slope of problems. Then there's other medical complications. So you're more likely to develop cardiovascular disease. So that's heart attacks or strokes. You're also more likely to develop type 2 diabetes. And this is especially if you're having 6 hours of sleep or less per 24 hours. There's also an increased risk of all-cause mortality. And you're more likely to put on weight because it can impact on your eating habits. And another thing that goes with that is high blood pressure. So you can be more likely to develop high blood pressure. Your immune system can also be affected by poor sleep. So I was just about to go on to factors that can affect your sleep. What kind of factors can make you less likely to fall asleep or have adequate sleep, that you can think of? Any factors at all?
Anxiety, worrying about things.
Yeah, exactly. So anxiety is actually a really common issue. Often I hear patients presenting with sleep issues, and often they're thinking about something stressful at work or home. You know, their mind is just sort of racing, and it's just stopping them from being able to sort of relax and fall asleep. Any other factors? How about anything sort of physically in the room?
Room too hot, room too cold.
Yep. So yeah, the environment. So if it's too hot or too cold, I think that affects men more if the room's too hot. And women find it too cold. Anything else at all? What kind of things do you try to avoid in order to ensure that you get good sleep?
Avoid caffeine, avoid alcohol.
That's right, yeah. So things that you eat and drink can affect your sleep. So heavy foods, especially if it's not too long before you actually go to bed. Certain medicines can affect your sleep, might be one of the side effects. Environmental factors, so you mentioned about temperature, but there's also light as well. So some people end up needing to use those blackout blinds or blackout curtains on top of their usual curtains. Comfort, just the comfort of the bed or the pillow as well. Bed too soft, bed too firm, pillows not being adequate. Alcohol, smoking, and caffeine, sort of mentioned about drinks and things. Stress, so that's again just thinking about things, not being able to switch off. Blue lights as well, so the light that's emitted from your phone or laptop can also stimulate your brain to think that it's daytime, and so that can affect your ability to sort of wind down, and your body sort of needs signals to say, right, it's time for bed, and blue lights sort of interfere with that. And there's also crossing time zones as well, that can really affect your sleep. Shift work, so anyone who does night shifts might really struggle to get good sleep in the daytime, because perhaps everyone else in the household is not working at night, and you've got the noises, the lights, that affect your ability to fall asleep when you need to. Other triggers as well, so mentioned about jet lag and shift work. Then there's behaviors as well, so during sleep, if someone snores, they may have poor quality sleep, because even though they're asleep, they can have momentary awakenings, and this is called sleep apnea, where they're snoring, then they stop breathing momentarily, and then they suddenly gasp, and then they fall back asleep again. They sort of go through these cycles, and these are people who tend to be overweight, that can get this, and they wake up thinking they've slept all night through, but actually they feel as though they've not had any sleep. Also, other things are restless legs. So some people find that they can't stop moving their feet at night, and that impacts on their sleep. And then also sleepwalking as well. So again, they might not be aware of it, but that will sort of lead to poor quality sleep. And then there's other sort of medical conditions, psychological conditions. Chronic pain is obviously going to affect your ability to sleep unless you've got the pain under control. Chronic obstructive airways disease. This is for those who've chronically smoked and they've got scarring on their lungs. They might struggle to breathe generally, and that affects their sleep. Anyone with heart failure as well, having to prop up their pillows so they can breathe more effectively, but they may struggle to sleep. And then GORD, which is basically reflux, esophageal reflux, that can affect the sleep, and obviously managing that would help with the sleep. As I've mentioned, medication use and substance misuse can affect your sleep. So we'll sort of talk about how to manage insomnia There's different ways you can manage it. The first thing to do is just to understand whether there is a sleep problem and what the pattern of the sleep is like. So it's useful to keep a sleep diary, just so that you can see whether you have early morning awakening, which sometimes can be a sign of depression, whether you're struggling to actually fall asleep, is it anxiety? And if there is any sort of psychological element to it, then getting any support to manage those things is going to ultimately help manage the sleep. And then there's also just sort of general measures, what we call sleep hygiene. And I'll talk a bit more about that shortly. If you feel that you are quite sleepy to the degree that you could easily fall asleep in the car while driving, you must avoid driving because of the risks yourself and other road users. In some circumstances, the DVLA will need to know, if you have a condition that affects your ability to drive safely. Occasionally, very short-term medication can be given to help people with sleep, but we recommend that it has to be very short-term because often the medication tends to be addictive medication. So that's benzodiazepines, that kind of thing. And we don't recommend it for older people or those who are breastfeeding or pregnant. And then if you're really struggling, it can be quite helpful to have cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. We call it CBTI. And that's if normal sleep hygiene measures fail, and if there's quite a bit of daytime impairment, then they can offer this therapy. And if it doesn't feel like it's going to resolve soon, again, it's another good option to go for, and you may be able to be referred by your GP for that therapy. And then there's sleep clinics as well. So if it's a person who is finding that they've got extreme tiredness in the day, it's affecting their day-to-day activity, they're scoring quite high on some of the questionnaires that assess for sleep quality, so that's like the Epworth score, things like that. If it looks like there may be an underlying problem, then they can be referred to a sleep clinic, and what they do is sort of put monitors on that person while they sleep, and they can assess for any sort of any sleep problems or any diagnoses that can be treated. Those patients who are most at risk are professional drivers, the HGV drivers who need to have good sleep. They may need to have an assessment if they're struggling with insomnia. So what is sleep hygiene? So there's lots of things that you can do to signal to your brain that it's time to sleep. So normally we, our brains are sort of controlled by, our brains contain something called a circadian rhythm, an apparatus, which essentially detects the sunlight. So when the sun comes up, we wake up because the sun actually ends up stimulating our brain. That's part of the reason why we wake up. And when the sun goes down, our body is getting signals just from the lack of light that we're heading towards sleep time. So our bodies need these sort of cues, if you like, to help regulate our sleep. So one good thing to do is establish a nighttime routine, because establishing a routine just helps your body pick up the signals that this routine is what we do before sleep. So I'm winding down, and your body essentially does wind down when it gets these signals. It's important to get up and go to sleep at the same time, because your body sort of adjusts to that habit, and also you're sort of you're more likely to get the number of hours that you need, especially if work, you have to be up for work at a certain time. Sort of deciding on a time that you go to bed the night before is gonna help you to make sure that you get enough sleep. Other things to do is create a healthy sleep environment. So that might be your bedroom, making sure that your bed is comfortable, there's no clutter, you know, there's nothing that sort of distracts you. Turning off electronics an hour before bed. So, you know, putting on your alarm, turning your phone off, putting it on silent. You know, the temptation to check your phone when it buzzes is quite strong. So if you put it on silent, you're less likely to pull it out and, you know, check who texted you or whatever. And then avoid large fatty meals before sleep, because that can keep you awake. It's quite good to do some exercises such as yoga or any stretching exercises to reduce stress and also signal to your body that you're winding down, especially if this is part of your night routine. Avoid any exercise before bed, and try to make sure that you are getting enough physical activity during the day. That also would help you to fall asleep later on in the evening. And again, just limit any caffeine, especially sort of from 6 p.m. onwards. Is there anything else that people do to sort of optimize their sleep? Any other measures?
Maybe reading before going to sleep.
Yeah, that can often drive you to sleep, can't it? But yeah, that's another habit that can help. I guess preferably not on the Kindle, because again, there's that sort of lights that can affect you, sort of give the wrong signals. Anything else at all?
I just concentrate on my breath.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And yeah, I just start counting backwards from 1,000.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah. That's really good. Fantastic. I will talk a bit more about other things. So there's a professional called Matthew Walker who specializes in sleep. He's done lots of studies on it, and he's also written a book about sleep. And he's got 12 tips to help you to sleep. So first of all, I'll just talk a bit about some sleep facts that he's also mentioned. So an afternoon nap increases the brain's learning capacity by 15 to 20%. So I guess, you know, they had it right in Spain where they have these siestas. It must obviously improve your general function. Sleep improves your memory, halting forgetting by 30 to 50% relative to staying awake. So if you have good sleep, you know, it means you're less likely to be forgetful. Not getting enough sleep increases your sweet and salty cravings by 30 to 40%, which it seems like they're completely unrelated, but it seems that that's what happens. And that would explain partly why poor sleep can lead to overweight and obesity and everything that comes with that, such as, you know, heart disease. Sleep offers a threefold boost in creativity and problem solving. So particularly if you're in a role where you know, where you're, you know, it's a creative job or you've got to do a lot of problem solving, you really do need to make sure you get good sleep to be effective in your job. And then a good night's sleep improves time to physical exhaustion when exercising by 10 to 30%. So that means when you're doing your physical activity, you know, your exercise, you're more likely to last longer doing it than if you have good sleep than if you don't. So his 12 tips are: stick to a sleep schedule. Exercise is great, but not too late in the day. So try to exercise at least 30 minutes on most days, but not later than 2 to 3 hours before your bedtime. As we've mentioned, avoid caffeine and nicotine. Avoid alcoholic drinks before bed. Some people actually take alcohol to help them to sleep, but that's just again, that just causes more problems in the long run. Avoid large meals and beverages late at night. If possible, avoid medicines that delay or disrupt your sleep. Don't take naps after 3 p.m. Relax before bed. Don't overschedule your day so that there's no time for unwinding. And a relaxing activity such as reading or listening to music should be part of your bedtime ritual. Take a hot bath before bed. that can help you to relax. Make sure the room is dark, it's cool, it's gadget free, and have the right sun exposure. So as I've mentioned, daylight is key to regulating daily sleep pattern. So try and make sure that you get enough natural sunlight, at least 30 minutes each day. And if possible, wake up with the sun or use very bright lights in the morning. And don't lie in bed awake. So if you are struggling to sleep, don't just lie there. Maybe get up and do something that might help you to settle down and relax. There is another method that you can use that we do recommend if you're struggling to sleep, and it's something that just basically helps you to relax all your muscles, and it helps you to sort of wind down. And it's something that you can do in bed, and you just sort of follow these instructions. So essentially, it's based on the idea that it's hard to be tense when your muscles are relaxed, and the exercise is performed methodically by tensing and relaxing 16 different muscle groups one by one. So first you write down all the muscle groups, or you can make an audio recording of yourself saying each one and sort of listening to it, and give yourself 45 seconds in between each group to allow yourself enough time to get through the process. And these are the muscle groups. So it's hands first, wrist, forearms, biceps, shoulders, forehead, around the eyes, the nose, cheeks and jaw, around the mouth, back of the neck, front of the neck, chest, back, stomach, hips, and buttocks, thighs, and lower legs. So you sort of work through all of these groups. You lie down in bed, and then you just breathe in and tense the first group of muscles for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then breathe out, quickly relax the muscle in that group. Stay relaxed for about 10 to 20 seconds before moving to the next muscle group. And you just repeat this process until you've gone through all 16 muscle groups. And once you've finished, then just focus on keeping all of the muscles relaxed, and you're much more likely to drift off to sleep. So it's quite a good method to use if you're really struggling. And I've got here some resources that you can access as well. So here I've got Healthy Minds. It's a self-help resource. So it's sort of it's almost like CBT around sleep problems. So I've got the link there. We'll send you a copy of this if you want to access that. You can also follow this link here, which tells you a bit more about insomnia and how to tackle that. And there's also a free audio guide on progressive relaxation techniques as well that you can access. And there's also more information about mindfulness on the mindfulness website. Again, can help you to sort of improve your sleep. Any questions at all?